There's a pretty unfortunate phenomenon in politics, which is that often for people, they have to directly be impacted by something to care about it or to believe you when you say that something's bad. And so that's leading a lot of people. The common thread in the show that we've been talking about is the curiosity from us as to how Trump voters will react, are reacting, and what their understanding is going to be of Trump's policies, if indeed Trump falls through on the ones that would be so harmful to even his voters. And it's not that we want to go, ha ha, we told you. It's that we can't control if Trump's going to do this stuff now, but we can control but we can impact people's understanding of it. And so one of the big topics has been Trump's tariffs and the fear that if he falls through on them, inevitably you'll see inflation, or what we're describing as Trumpflation. And so if that happens, can we make sure at least the Republican Party gets punished for the fact that they ran on bringing down prices, but then increased them? And that brings us to the video I want to play for you. Before getting to just some more fun ones of Trump voters being explained to them tariffs and sort of being like, what? I want to show you this, which is proof that you can. Even a Trump voter can turn on him. That's not going to help us electorally with Trump because he's not going to run again unless Steve Bannon gets his way. But instead, to demonstrate to them, maybe we're not so crazy when we sound the alarm about this ideology. And in the past, this was before the 2020 election, you had a report done about farmers who were being impacted by Trump's tariffs that were more narrow on China that impacted them negatively. And they really did abandon Trump because of it. So it's possible. Then we'll talk about how we get there in the present day. While you watch, please do click the subscribe button.
Did you vote for Trump?
I did. I'll never vote for him again.
This is survival at this point. I mean, for a lot of operations, it is a survival thing.
That's what's allowing you to survive.
That's what's keeping this farm going.
For our podcast listeners, you're just hearing music in between the testimony. I'll read back some of that to you after.
Uneducated guess is that he better hurry up and start producing a little bit, because this negotiation that I'm seeing so far has not panned out.
You voted for this president.
Yes.
Regrets?
Yes.
You voted for President Trump. You liked his, I remember you saying, you liked his can-do, get-it-done attitude. So now, in this moment, you say you're in a free fall. What is your message to him?
I was on the Trump train, I was off the Trump train, back and forth. Where I'm going for now is I got to protect my business. You know, a minute ago, the president, you played a clip that he said that we were patriots. Well, I'll tell you what, to me, that's just a design to make me continue to be quiet, and I'm not going to be quiet.
You know what, Christopher? That is actually something.
I got to protect my family.
You speaking out against a trade war, is that unpatriotic, Christopher?
No, it's certainly not unpatriotic at all. And I'm not going to have my, certainly not going to have my patriotism questioned. I'm not sure why the president's even bringing this up. Listen, for me to be a patriot, the best thing I can do is to take care of my family, to take care of my farm, and make sure that I stay viable. Because farmers buy things. They buy things that are manufactured. And by the way, you know what we buy? We buy things made out of steel. We buy things made out of aluminum. So that's our duty. And why the farming community has to take one in the shorts just so that the president can have a talking point and be tough on China, just is a little bit beyond me.
So let me read some of the context, and then we'll go through a bunch more. These Iowa farmers have turned on President Trump. It said farmers are taking the brunt of high tariffs Trump placed on China. Many Chinese markets have stopped buying their goods, such as soybeans And then you hear some of that testimony. One of the farmers had to start driving a truck at night to afford to keep his farm. On top of that, the Midwest has been hit with bad flooding this season. It goes through more context of some relief efforts that Trump opposed, and then some of the stuff that you heard there from that one individual. So it's possible, but the really tragic part of this, which is my big thesis of this segment, is that I hate so much that people have to feel it that close to home to change their position. And I do think that's going to happen to people where they'll go, wait, Trump, he was most excited about retribution. He carried out potentially disastrous mass deportations that didn't go anywhere like what I thought they were going to or something. He was focused on keeping himself out of jail. But when he told me he was going to bring down grocery prices, he came into office and he did the opposite. And unlike the price increases we saw under Biden and Harris that were pandemic condition related, that actually the inflation they handled pretty effectively in getting it down faster than comparable countries. But unlike that not being the direct impact unilaterally of policies of Biden and Harris, this will have been. And so maybe some people will go, dang it. But in a sense, what does that do for us now? I guess unless they carry it over to punish Republicans more generally, we could see an impact there. And it is so sad that for many, many people, it's kind of like what we talk about with some Republican politician who's super anti-gay, and then a family member of theirs comes out and they all of a sudden change their position. I'm glad when they change their position, but I'm kind of confused as to why it took you going, wait, they're people too. I can love someone and they can be gay. It's just baffling me. It's a bummer it has to be that close to home for people. And it's in the case of the farmers you saw in that video back in 2019, we haven't seen anything yet. Because the trade war Trump was engaged in with China was nothing compared to what we seem to be getting into with Mexico, Canada, and China. And I just have to keep coming back to, some people think the economic pain that would come of that would be justified for negotiating purposes or for supply chain purposes. And that's why I keep coming back to, I'm just making the argument that number one, how wide-ranging and how aggressive Trump's tariff plan is very economically unstable or destabilizing. And number two, that it is so detached from what the people that Trump was enabled by, got put into power by, thought he was going to do, even though he told us that's what he was going to do. He said he's going to do these sorts of things. So is it possible, to answer the question we've been asking, for some of these folks to see their economic reality be hindered by Trump if that's what ends up happening, and then change their position and maybe be more open-minded to the principles that we've articulated on other issues as well? Yes. But is it so often really, really, really late and it's already hurting them directly in a way that I wish wouldn't happen by the time people flip around? Yes, that's why I think that first video demonstrates. Now, a little bit more fun. It's always interesting as we just await Trump actually officially starting the trade war, if he does the tariff plan he said he's going to do on day one, to hear conversations with Trump supporters who just really don't seem to be getting their head around even what a tariff is.
I'm voting for the man that's going to take America back, baby. Donald J. Trump, man.
What's one of your biggest issues?
Probably going to be inflation, because I sell T-shirts and all that stuff.
Your T-shirts are made in the USA?
No, my blanks, no. See, that's the thing Trump's talking about. If we tax them, hit tariffs, the same item they're making over there will cost the same to make over here.
We pay the tariffs.
Well, the companies pay the tariffs, not us.
China doesn't pay the tariffs. We do when they come in.
What did Jesus do for you?
No, it doesn't work like that.
Like if I'm buying 1,000 shirts from China and there's a tariff on it, I'm paying the tariff.
Well, no, whoever's getting it imported in is going to pay the tariffs.
Yeah. I'm the business owner. I'm paying the tariff. China doesn't pay it. I pay for it.
Well,
like if I'm the business owner and I buy 1,000 shirts,
I see what you're saying.
I'm China's not Jolly. So I'm trying to
So who
explain.
pays the tariff?
They're paying the tariff.
Do you think that? Do you believe that?
Because I was trying to say, because I sell merch as well.
I sell you something for $10, right? You're going to sell it to him for $20.
Exactly.
But then I make you pay me $15 for it. Are you still going to sell it to him for $20?
Am I gonna sell it to him for 20?
If I raise the price $5.
Oh, it's gonna have to go up.
Right. So
Yeah, the consumer foots the bill.
Have a good day.
That was a really nice way to explain it. I should have. You got to really break it down to the core there. Yeah. And it's not about mocking anybody necessarily. No, it's really not. But instead, just being baffled, and then maybe a little mockery, by people so aggressively arguing in favor of Trump while he was campaigning, and then either being confused when Trump does what he said he was going to do and it's bad, or confused when people try to explain that that is what could come of the very policy. What we told you before. I mean, this has all been broken down. This is not new post-Trump winning the election. We all knew it. People were so certain that it made sense for Trump to say, we're going to get prices down. And one of the parts of that, as a part of my economic proposals, are huge tariffs. 25% on all imports on our two biggest trading partners, Canada and Mexico. Who? And so the reason this is so, it's not just to keep explaining to y'all that U.S. companies pay it. It's not to say that any tariff proposals will be bad. Obviously not. We've talked about how, of course, you leverage tariffs in strategic ways. The way Trump's doing it is a horrible plan because of how expansive it is. And also that even if you were one to make the argument that we got to go so aggressive because we'd benefit from certain supply chains, even if everything were more expensive, being more in the United States, I still want people to concede, if that's the argument, because I've had a couple Trump supporters say that this is completely against the quote unquote mandate of lowering prices. And then finally, this is the big part of it. So many Trump voters, not the hardcore supporters who no matter what Trump's going to do, well, like I'm talking about so many of the people who really swung this election, excuse me as I'm spitting, apologies, justified his authoritarianism, justified his threats against the media, his past behavior trying to prevent the democratic process, justified his harmful rhetoric in so many ways, his harmful actions, admitted to his character flaws, justified his sexual assault liability, all by saying, I'm sorry, I just can't care about that because of prices. Do you know how many people in my life I would go, Inflation Reduction Act, and just lay out the whole case, and they would go, how did that make sense? But the cost of eggs. And I would try to explain that's definitely so real, but the cause of it is I'm making that noise because that's what I imagined they were hearing based on the way they would respond, which was just, but prices. So the question is, will we have any, and I'm saying we because we're all collectively American, even though I did not want this and I tried to prevent it. Are we collectively going to have regret? Buyer's remorse? Maybe this is why you don't justify voting for a madman because of an issue before you know for certain you're putting the blame in the proper places and you understand the economic approach of Trump. When Trump would get asked questions about economic issues and we'd all go, oh my gosh, that was a crazy incoherent answer. And he would just sort of talk in circles and I would read you the transcripts. The reason is because when someone can't succinctly, articulately, intelligently, comprehensively explain how they're going to do the thing that they're complaining about, how they're going to solve the problem, not just talk about the problem, that's a warning sign. Then you, of course, have this viral clip with our good friend David Pakman, and I'd say friend of the show in a sense. I appeared also on Sean Kelly's show here, the Digital Social Hour, and this moment where David explains it is something.
China's not paying tariffs right now?
The tariffs are paid by the American companies that import the Chinese goods. That's the way it's such a fundamental, and I see you looking a little confused on this one.
Yeah, I'm confused.
This is the way tariffs work. What Trump did is place tariffs on Chinese imports. By the time the imports get here, China's been paid for this stuff. Maybe they get net 120 terms, right? But in a sense, China has already transacted. The American company who brings the goods in pays the tariffs.
Really?
You're kidding right now.
No, I thought he said he was raising the tariffs by 50 to 100% for Chinese imports.
You got to clip this. I'm begging you. You got to clip this and send it to me.
I'm genuinely
None
confused.
of this stuff is getting cut out, right?
No.
Oh, my God.
That is such the mind of someone who does this for work. Please send me that clip, because it nicely packages, with no hate to Sean Kelly, because he's articulating a misunderstanding a lot of people have, what let Trump get away with misleading people. I do want to ask all of you, by the way, how do I word this? I'd rather, let me put it this way. I'd rather over compassion than under compassion, right? I'd rather go a little overboard as a practice, as a muscle to work, as opposed to at some point looking back and realizing I lacked compassion. With that being said, where do you stand on going, this is what you voted for? Whenever prices go up, and that's painful, my default is I don't want that for anyone. I'm not saying they deserve it. I'm not saying, you get what you voted for. Not just because people who didn't vote for it are being harmed, but because I understand that good, well-meaning people can be misled into voting for something that hurts them, and I would never wish that. But I know some people go, you sleep in the bed that you reap what you sow, the sandwich that you made you eat type of deal. All of those things. And I'm curious to hear what y'all think. One other little update on, as we're talking about tariffs.
We will go to the extent of cutting off their energy, going down to Michigan, going down to New York State and over to Wisconsin. I don't want this to happen, but my number one job is to protect Ontarians and Canadians as a whole. We'll use every tool in our toolbox, including cutting them off energy that we're sending down there. Folks, this is coming. It's not if it is, it's coming. And it's coming January 20th or 21st. And we need to be prepared.
Yay! Isn't that, what do you think energy being cut off to the United States? This is a Canadian official, by the way. Doug Ford. You know Doug Ford, obviously. We all know Doug Ford of Canada. He is talking about cutting off energy to the United States. Do you think that will help prices or hurt prices? Supply goes down, prices go where? But you do blame people, but you almost don't. Whenever there's a genuine misunderstanding. People have busy lives, they have a lot of stresses, and whenever Trump propagandizes them, you almost don't blame them for being so discombobulated. But it's hard not to, for sure. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And to get the bonus show, if you're thinking, this is just blech, but I appreciate Luke, and you want to go a little step further to support, then you can by clicking the join button below, where we do the bonus show.